Welcome to this explainer. Look, today we're running a bit of a psychological audit on a really uncomfortable question. Why do you have these massive, incredibly ambitious dreams, but take absolutely zero action toward them? Like none. We're going to break down the actual science of why we freeze up, and more importantly, how to finally break that cycle. Let's just be brutally honest for a second. You probably have a notes app absolutely stuffed with million-dollar business ideas, right? Or maybe a Pinterest board mapping out the exact aesthetic of the life you're quote-unquote gonna build. But here's the thing. You aren't stuck because you lack inspiration. You're stuck because you are secretly addicted to the potential version of yourself. And you know what? Addicted people don't naturally change. They just manage their addiction. So let's fix that. Okay, moving right into our first mechanism. This is the dopamine trap, specifically focusing on the fake reward effect. Now, look at how your brain's reward system actually distributes dopamine. It's wild. Buying a shiny new $200 planner gives you a massive 45% dopamine hit. That is the exact same chemical reward as telling your friends all about your big plans. Meanwhile, doing the real, actual work, that sits at a measly 10%. Your brain literally cannot tell the difference between planning to do something and actually doing it. It traps you in this endless cycle of hustle culture theater, where you feel productive, but you're really not. So how on earth do we escape this? Well, your breakout strategy is a total, unapologetic ban on preparation. You must physically ban yourself from any prep activity until you've executed the actual work. No researching, no planning. Seriously, you have to write that first terrible paragraph before you are even allowed to buy that fancy leather notebook. All right, let's move on to our next section, paralysis by analysis. This is all about the fear of failure and overthinking. We absolutely love to call ourselves perfectionists, don't we? We tell ourselves we're just waiting to do it right. But underneath that very respectable mask, perfectionism is basically just strategic patience. It's the ultimate American hustle culture disguise. Honestly, it's just fear wearing a blazer. You're protecting this really comforting myth, the idea that if you never really try, well, you can never really fail. To shatter that myth, you need to radically reframe your goal. Stop aiming for success on your very first attempt. That is a guaranteed one-way ticket to staying paralyzed. Instead, I want you to go out and intentionally collect one failure and one lesson this week. Think about it. Failure isn't the opposite of your goal. It's literally just the tuition you pay to get there. And that brings us straight to overthinking. Because overthinking feels incredibly exhausting, we naturally mistake it for hard work. But running 15 different disaster scenarios in your head before sending a single email, that is just your nervous system simulating effort to avoid risk. You aren't thinking your way to clarity. You are just thinking your way to exhaustion. You have got to break out of this simulation. So here is your action plan. Set a hard 10-minute decision timer. When that timer goes off, you act, even if it's super messy. Treat everything you do as a rough draft, not some final, life-defining verdict. Remember, rough drafts can always be revised tomorrow. Absolute paralysis cannot. Up next is mechanism number 3, the illusion of progress and waiting for the right time. We do this all the time, right? We're always waiting for Monday, waiting for the holidays to pass, or, I don't know, waiting for Mercury to be out of retrograde. Let me be super clear about this. There is no right time. It doesn't exist. It's merely a psychological stalling tactic. Readiness is a feeling that only shows up after you start. Never, ever before. The immediate prescription here is a super simple vocabulary swap. I want you to permanently replace the word when with the word what. So instead of asking the passive question, when will I be ready? Ask yourself right now, what is the absolute smallest action I can take in the next 60 minutes? Motion creates readiness. Let's jump into our next topic, identity and potential. These are really the deepest barriers to action. Do any of these internal labels sound familiar to you? I'm just not disciplined, or I'm creative but disorganized, or maybe I never finish things. Listen, if your internal identity aligns with these stories, your behavior is going to forcefully confirm them. If you secretly believe you're creative but disorganized, you will actually subconsciously sabotage yourself just to maintain that identity. It's crazy, but we all do it. To break this trap, you have to stop trying to motivate the old version of yourself. It doesn't work. You need cold, hard facts to build a new identity. So pick one tiny, easily finishable task today and complete it 100%. Every single time you do that, you are casting a powerful psychological vote for a new identity as someone who actually follows through. Which brings us to a mechanism almost nobody talks about, the addiction to potential. Potential is intoxicating because, well, it's undefeated. The version of you in your head who could start a massive company, that person has never failed. But the exact moment you actually try, you trade that perfect, safe fantasy for a real, flawed, maybe 60% successful reality. And honestly, that's exactly why we hide. But potential only survives in private. If you want to break this cycle, you must kill the fantasy on purpose. Publicly commit to a deadline. Publish a piece of work that is totally unfinished. The instant your work becomes real, you trade that comfortable fantasy for actual compounding progress. All right, we've made it to the final section, the 10-minute breakout. Let's get to your prescription. I'm giving you a 10-minute challenge. When we wrap up here, I want you to close this explainer, set a timer on your phone for exactly 10 minutes, and do the absolute smallest possible version of that thing you've been planning for months. Write one sentence, send one email. Just do it in the next 10 minutes. Because a year from now, you are going to face one of two realities. You'll either be remarkably further along in your actual goals, truly living in reality, or you'll be sitting here watching another explainer exactly like this one, still about to start. The only difference between those two futures is what you choose to execute today. So, I want you to confront your reality right now. Think about it. Was it the fake reward effect? Fear of failure? Waiting for the right time? Overthinking? Identity issues? Or the addiction to potential? Which of these 6 psychological mechanisms is currently keeping you stagnant? And more importantly, what imperfect 10-minute action are you taking today to absolutely shatter it? The choice is entirely yours. Make it happen.